The crowd fell silent under the bright afternoon sun as one of the most powerful CEOs in America folded her arms and smiled confidently beside her million-dollar supercar. Cameras flashed. Employees gathered. Investors watched from a luxury terrace above the parking lot. Then came the challenge that would change everything. A wealthy CEO pointed at a struggling single dad standing near the car and publicly bet $1 million that he couldn't even start the vehicle. What nobody knew was that the quiet man she was mocking had once helped design the very engine hidden beneath that gleaming hood. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone by their appearance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more powerful stories that touch the heart. The summer afternoon was unusually warm in downtown Austin. Office towers reflected sunlight across polished streets while luxury cars lined the entrance of Vantage Dynamics, one of the fastest-growing automotive technology companies in the country. Inside the glass headquarters, executives discussed expansion plans worth billions. Outside, life looked very different for a man named Rowan Mercer. Rowan was 39 years old and carried the exhaustion of someone who had fought battles nobody could see. His faded work shirt was clean but worn. His boots had been repaired so many times that the leather barely resembled its original shape. Yet despite the hardships, there was a quiet dignity in the way he walked. Beside him stood his 9-year-old daughter, Juniper, whose bright smile remained untouched by the difficulties of their life. 3 years earlier, Rowan's world had collapsed. He had once been a respected mechanical engineer working for a cutting-edge automotive startup. He spent years helping develop revolutionary engine systems designed to increase power while reducing fuel consumption. His work earned patents, praise, and industry recognition. Life seemed secure. Then tragedy arrived without warning. His wife, Marisol, became seriously ill. Medical bills mounted rapidly. Rowan missed work to care for her and their daughter. The company he worked for eventually downsized during an economic downturn. Within months he lost both his job and, heartbreakingly, his wife. The grief nearly destroyed him. For a long time, every morning felt impossible. Yet Juniper needed her father. She needed school lunches packed, homework checked, bedtime stories read, and reassurance that life would somehow become okay again. So Rowan kept moving. He accepted repair jobs, drove delivery trucks, fixed farm equipment, and worked wherever someone needed mechanical expertise. Most people never knew the man repairing their engines once helped build technology that transformed an industry. What Rowan also never knew was that one of his old engineering designs had eventually been acquired through a series of corporate mergers. Those designs found their way into the newest flagship vehicle produced by Vantage Dynamics. The company celebrated the engine as a revolutionary breakthrough. The engineers who originally created it were long forgotten. That afternoon, Rowan had arrived at Vantage Dynamics for a temporary maintenance contract. He spent the morning repairing industrial generators in a side building while Juniper sat quietly nearby reading a library book because summer vacation had begun and childcare was too expensive. Near lunchtime, excitement spread throughout the campus. The company's CEO, Celeste Hartwell, was unveiling a limited production hypercar valued at over $1 million. The event attracted media attention and investors from around the world. Celeste Hartwell was admired by many and feared by even more. Brilliant, ambitious, and relentless, she had built a reputation for winning at any cost. Success had brought wealth beyond imagination, but somewhere along the way, humility had disappeared. As reporters gathered around the vehicle, Celeste proudly described the engineering marvel beneath the hood. The crowd applauded. Then the unexpected happened. The car refused to start. Technicians rushed forward. Engineers checked diagnostic systems. Software specialists examined electronic controls. Nothing worked. Minutes turned into nearly an hour. The CEO's confidence slowly transformed into frustration as cameras continued recording. Investors exchanged worried glances. The launch event was becoming a public embarrassment. Standing nearby, Rowan noticed something unusual. He recognized a pattern in the engine behavior. Even from a distance, the symptoms seemed strangely familiar. His instincts told him exactly where the problem was hiding. Yet he remained silent. Years of hardship had taught him not to draw attention to himself. Unfortunately, attention found him anyway. One executive noticed Rowan watching the vehicle. Perhaps hoping for a laugh to lighten the tense atmosphere, he jokingly pointed toward the maintenance worker. Soon several people joined in. Celeste herself looked toward Rowan and smirked. The contrast between the billionaire CEO and the dusty mechanic seemed almost theatrical. A few reporters turned their cameras. Someone suggested letting the maintenance worker try. The crowd laughed. Then Celeste made a decision that would soon become legendary. In front of hundreds of people, she announced a wager. If the single dad could start the hypercar, she would personally pay him $1 million. If he failed, he would publicly admit he knew nothing about advanced engineering and leave the property. The crowd erupted with excitement. To many observers, the outcome seemed obvious. A billionaire CEO stood on one side. A struggling maintenance worker stood on the other. Nobody expected the mechanic to know more than the people who built the car. Juniper looked up at her father nervously. Rowan hesitated. The humiliation wasn't what frightened him. He had endured worse. What concerned him was the possibility of becoming a spectacle in front of his daughter. Then he looked into her eyes. He saw trust. Belief. The same belief she showed every time life knocked them down. Quietly, Rowan accepted. The crowd parted as he approached the vehicle. The afternoon sun reflected off the metallic paint while reporters moved closer for a better view. Rowan studied the engine compartment carefully. Years seemed to disappear from his face as concentration replaced exhaustion. His hands moved confidently. Every component felt familiar. Because it was. Deep inside the machine were design principles he had helped create long ago. He noticed a tiny fault hidden within a complex sensor calibration sequence. The issue was subtle enough to confuse modern diagnostic systems but obvious to someone who understood the original architecture. Someone who had helped invent it. The crowd watched in silence. A minute passed. Then another. Rowan adjusted a component. Reset a sequence. Checked a connection. Finally, he closed the hood. The entire parking lot held its breath. Rowan sat in the driver's seat. He pressed the ignition button. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the engine roared to life. The sound thundered across the campus. Powerful. Smooth. Perfect. The crowd exploded with shock. Investors stood from their seats. Reporters shouted questions. Employees stared in disbelief. Juniper jumped with excitement and tears filled her eyes. For the first time in years, she saw the world recognize the greatness she had always known existed inside her father. Meanwhile, Celeste Hartwell stood completely motionless. The smile had vanished from her face. Something far more unsettling had replaced it. Recognition. Because moments earlier, one of her senior engineers had shown her archival documents related to the engine design. A name appeared repeatedly throughout the records. Rowan Mercer. The man she had publicly mocked. The man she had assumed was insignificant. The man who had just solved a problem her entire engineering team couldn't identify. Reality hit her with overwhelming force. For years she had celebrated innovations without knowing the struggles of the people who created them. For years she had judged success by appearances. And now those assumptions had collapsed in front of hundreds of witnesses. The event quickly spread across social media. Millions watched the footage. News outlets shared the story nationwide. People weren't fascinated by the supercar. They were fascinated by the father. The engineer. The widower. The man who refused to let hardship define him. The next morning, Rowan expected life to return to normal. Instead, opportunities arrived from every direction. Companies offered consulting positions. Universities invited him to speak. Engineering organizations sought his expertise. Yet the most surprising visitor was Celeste Hartwell herself. She arrived at Rowan's modest home without cameras or reporters. Gone was the arrogance displayed during the launch event. For the first time in years, she appeared genuinely human. She apologized. Not because public pressure demanded it. Because she finally understood the damage caused by judging people without knowing their stories. She honored the $1 million bet. But Rowan wasn't interested in revenge or humiliation. Instead, he proposed something unexpected. He asked that a significant portion of the money be used to establish scholarships for single parents pursuing careers in engineering and technology. Celeste agreed immediately. Months later, the Mercer Foundation opened its first scholarship program. Dozens of parents received opportunities they never thought possible. Lives began changing. Dreams restarted. Hope returned. Rowan accepted a leadership role developing next-generation engine systems, but he never forgot the difficult years. He never forgot the loneliness, the uncertainty, or the sacrifices required to keep moving forward. Most importantly, he never forgot why he fought so hard. One evening, long after the headlines faded, Rowan and Juniper sat together watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and orange. The world finally recognized his talent, but the greatest reward wasn't money or fame. It was seeing pride in his daughter's eyes. It was knowing she had learned a lesson that would guide her for the rest of her life. Never judge someone by where they stand today. You never know the battles they've survived. You never know the dreams they've sacrificed. And you never know whether the person standing quietly in the background is actually the one who built the foundation beneath your feet. Before the story ends, please comment below. Kindness sees what pride misses. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of someone who never gave up despite life's hardships, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful stories of hope, resilience, and second chances to people around the world. Because sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones standing in the spotlight. They're the ones quietly rebuilding their lives while nobody is watching. And one day, the world finally sees them.